Our Across the Aisle segment tonight, in a news story out of Florida, one family was told to pay $40,000 a year in health insurance premiums thanks to Obamacare. That's right, $40,000 a year. Heidi and Richard Ryder signed up for a plan through Obamacare that in 2017 cost them $26,000 a year. The next year, they found out the same plan would cost $40,000 a year. That is a 54% increase. So they selected a lower quality plan and still had to pay $29,000 in premiums. Democrats like to scare Americans with stories about how a Republican plan would cause people to see premium increases and thus lose their insurance. But that sounds a lot like what is actually happening under Obamacare. With me now, history professor and author of Obama's America, Ian Reifowitz. Ian, good to see you.
Thanks for having me on, Liz.
All right, Ian, $40,000 a year. This is for a family of four, a married couple and their two sons. $40,000. Is that affordable?
Well, it's a difficult bill to pay, but if you're going to ask yourself and ask America to determine whether Obamacare is working well or not, you're not going to look at one family, of course. If you look at health insurance premiums in the United States as a whole, from 1999 to 2008, they went up 131%. 131%, okay? You know what they went up in the first 5 years after Obamacare? 20%, on average. That is a much better amount than 113% over 10 years, 20% over 5 years. It's about
this family in Florida is
increases.
Not anecdotal. In Arizona in 2016, their premiums went up by 113% in 1 year. That's happened in multiple states throughout our country. I think it was 10 states that it went up over 50, some closer to 60 or 75%. And my question would be, isn't that privileged of Democrats to claim that Obamacare is working and that individual families who are so clearly hurt by these crippling premiums are just an anecdote to brush to the side?
Liz, you're getting the data wrong. You're citing a subset of the overall insurance market. The people who are getting the insurance through Obamacare exchanges, which is the individual exchanges, is not the whole of America. And the whole of America was changed by Obamacare. Remember, before Obamacare, the individual insurance market essentially didn't exist. If you didn't get insurance through your job or you weren't over 65, you essentially couldn't get individual insurance. So that market didn't exist before Obamacare. Second of all, the fact is that Obamacare has significantly slowed the growth rate of insurance premiums in a time where coverage has gotten better, more comprehensive, and
that's what I'm asking. How can you argue
more
that?
people have been
How
covered.
can you argue that
So
when there's
better.
stories,
Well,
like these people, like Heidi
finish.
and Richard Ryder, who had their plan that they thought that their plan that they chose for $26,000. The next year they were told that same plan would cost $40,000. So the only resort that they had is they downgraded. They chose a plan that covered less, even though that wasn't what they wanted ideally. It still cost more than the original plan that they wanted the first year. How can you argue that that's working? How can you argue that Obamacare has made it more affordable and accessible and better coverage, more coverage, when these people actively had to downgrade their coverage because they couldn't afford it and Obamacare didn't help them?
And how about the 20 million people who got coverage upgraded and who got it upgraded with a very, very affordable premium?
The word upgraded is misleading.
Yes,
I may not know that.
Well, no, I may not know their names.
The word upgraded is misleading because many of those people were funneled onto Medicaid.
Liz,
many of those people were forced to buy coverage they didn't want or upgrade to a type of coverage that they otherwise didn't want. I've had family members who that happened to, who are young, healthy people who had just catastrophic insurance because that's all they wanted and were forced to purchase these so-called comprehensive plans that are unaffordable. I don't understand what it will take at this point for Democrats to say, listen, we intended Obamacare to be affordable. We intended it to make health insurance more accessible. We intended it to be universal so that everyone had access to it. But the fact of the matter is, it didn't work. We see that before our eyes. What's it going to take for Democrats to admit that?
It has worked. You have to look at all of the numbers, A. B, you're talking about increases in 2018. Obamacare worked a lot better before Donald Trump got his hands on it. Donald Trump has been sabotaging it since he got into office. He cut the subsidies for out-of-pocket costs. He's cut the number of days available for enrollment.
Then talk to me about
outreach.
2016.
And his purpose is...
Whose fault was it in 2016?
His purpose is to sabotage... Whose fault was it in 2016
that insurers pulled out of Obamacare individual exchanges because they were hemorrhaging money? Yes, it is. There are
No,
so
they did
many
not.
counties in
Look
our
at-
country where there's only one option
No.
on the Obamacare exchange because insurance providers pulled out because they were losing so much money, because the premise of Obamacare was to get young, healthy people to sign up for very expensive insurance packages that would cover the costs of the older and sicker people. That didn't happen because it wasn't necessary, and people chose to pay the penalty instead, the penalty inflicted by the government for not purchasing a commodity that individual citizens in our nation didn't want. Explain to me why that happened in 2016.
First of all, you didn't obviously listen to the data I gave you earlier. The 10 years before Obamacare, health insurance premiums went up 131%. The growth rate was much, much lower, almost at the inflation rate in the first 5 years under Obamacare. Second of all, the mandate is there. If you don't like the mandate, you must not like Social Security or Medicare, because those are programs with mandates too. Do the Republicans want to run on repealing Social Security and Medicare?
That doesn't answer
the mandate is there so
why
that
Obamacare premiums in 2016 skyrocketed, why they're skyrocketing this year,
why didn't they
and why they're
skyrocket in
skyrocketing for
2012?
2018.
No, they're skyrocketing in 2018 to the degree they are because Donald Trump and the Republican Party has injected uncertainty to the market. Florida Blue, one of the premium,
And
one of the
this is
carriers
why
mentioned in the
Democrats.
article we're
This is
talking
why
about.
Democrats continue to
Please let me
lose,
finish.
Ian.
Please.
This is why Democrats
Liz,
continue
Florida
to
Blue
lose,
said that they
because they won't look at what's actually
Florida-
happening to people. You're so stuck on the ideology of single-payer healthcare that you won't look at the practical results. We tried
Obamacare
it.
isn't
We
single-payer.
implemented it. It didn't work. At what point can you admit that?
Obamacare isn't single payer. Florida Blue said that their premiums went up by 20% specifically because of the uncertainty injected into the market by what Trump and the Republicans did. The things that I mentioned, threatening to repeal, cutting the subsidies. Donald Trump and the Republicans own Obamacare now. It's Trump care. If premiums are going to keep going up, that's going to be on them. I gave you the data for the first 5 years after Obamacare was implemented. That includes 2016. Overall, premiums went up by 20% in 5 years versus 113% in the 10 years before Obamacare went up. Before Obamacare was enacted. Obamacare is working. Trump is making it worse. And if it fails, it's going to be on Trump's hands.
Listen, you and I do not disagree that the Republicans in Congress botched up repealing it. It's astonishing to me. And like I said, it's why Democrats continue to lose, that they can't recognize that their experiment failed, that it's time to say, listen, it failed, and let's move on to the next thing, and that they're ignoring the very real-life repercussions that American citizens are suffering under the government mandate of Obamacare, because they are real, they are devastating, and they're happening to everyday voters who are not going to vote Democrat again after what they're suffering under Obamacare. Ian, I do appreciate you coming on the show, debating this stuff with me. I'll talk to you again next week. All right, our final tipping point of the night. President Trump incites violence and terror in the Middle East by moving our embassy to Jerusalem. Oh, no, wait. That's what liberals would have you believe, but we will show you the truth in just a moment. We'll be right back.